Okay, good to welcome everyone. A royal welcome. As we, and I could honestly say over here, I'm joined by the heroes of the Daf. The heroes of the Daf, these are hard bleta to come on for 2 blat at the beginning of the week. Is a very big schia to be with everybody. Hashem should give us the koyach that we should be able to do it, understand it, and feel fulfilled by it. We are dedicated by A.B. Spry and family that in the schus of the Bavas, all his children should be healthy Babas, and by Michal Avram with the tefillah that he should finish Shas many times over, and we welcome in Dr. Block, Saba, Mo Kushner, Stephen Holtzman, Aaron Swade, Shelley Zeitlin, Mel Zachter, Michal, Irving Fishbaum, Shimon Klein, Dr. Guy, Yitzi Fuchs, Richard Rosenzweig, Moshe Lehman, Naftali Javelin, Ilya Shutman, Chaim Braun, Pesach Ziegelman, Rabbi Kranz. Here in the shul we have Berish Gesserman, Michal Avram, and Ruvain Shannet, and we're also joined now by Menachem Umansky, who's joining us. We are holding by Boy Minei Shmuel Merav, which is situated 8 lines from the bottom of Tesvav Amud Beis. 8 lines from the bottom of Tesvav Amud Beis, and that would be in the Art Scroll 15b3. We're going to change around the names from our normal case because we have to kill off some people. We don't like to do that. So we'll deal with Ruvain and Shimon. Ruvain steals a field from Nachman and sells it to Shimon. Now here, Ruvain wants to do the right thing. So after he steals the field from Nachman and sells it to Shimon, he then goes and buys it from Nachman. And the beginning of today's Gemara is going to discuss, is his sale then binding with Shimon? Because the truth of the matter is that when he sold it to Shimon, it wasn't his. In the Gemara's language, the shtar that he gave Shimon for the field was a chaspa ba'alma, was a mere shard. Because when he sold it to Shimon, it wasn't his. Now, Reuven goes ahead and buys the field from Nachman. So what can Shimon say that now the field is his? Because retroactively it's his? Or do we say that when Reuven sold it to Shimon, it wasn't his yet? So, says the Gemara, let's see it inside. If after Reuven stole the field from Nachman and sold it to Shimon, he then did the right thing and bought the field from Nachman. Mao. Amalei, so the Gemara says, well, Ma mochaloi rishon l'sheni. What did Reuven sell to Shimon? Kol schus shetava liyodai. Any right that will yet come to his hand in the future. So the Gemara says that therefore Shimon now is the owner of the field. My timer. Says the Gemara, what's the reason? So Mazutra says that Reuven doesn't want to be known as a thief. He doesn't want Shimon going around and saying that he's a thief. Mazutra he doesn't want to be known as a thief. So therefore he did the right thing. He bought the field from Nachman. So now that it's rightfully owned by Shimon, and Shimon is not going to call him a thief. Rav Ashi has a different spin. He wants it, Reuven wants that he should be considered a trustworthy person. And if he doesn't buy the field from Nachman, and Shimon is going to end up finding out that he's in a stolen field, he's not going to really view Reuven as a trustworthy person. So, at first glance, it says that we're really saying the same thing. You're 6 of one, half a dozen of another. My beinayu says the Gemara, and this is why I didn't want to use me and Marshall as I've been using till now. The difference is if Shimon dies. So if Shimon dies, that he's doing it because he doesn't want to be called the thief. He's not going to be called a thief because now Shimon is dead. Hamesli, thank you very much. Josh, you okay?
Yeah.
It says the Gemara, Michalei, he's not going to be called the thief by Shimon because Shimon died. Hamesli. He wants to be known as a trustworthy person. Well, he wants to be known as a trustworthy person by Shimon's children too. He wants to be trustworthy with the children. Says the Gemara, well, he doesn't want the children to call him a Gazlan either. He doesn't want the children, Shimon's children, to call him a thief. That's not a difference. Says the Gemara, as we welcome in Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, says the Gemara, it's talking about Ruvain, the one who initially sold it and stole it from Nachman. He died. So that a person doesn't want to be called a thief, that you don't have over here because he died. A person wants to be known as a trustworthy person even after he dies. Says again, well, he doesn't want that his children should be known as the children of a Gazlan. He doesn't want that either. What happened is Reuven gave Shimon the stolen field as a gift. And then he bought the field from Nachman. So if you say that the reason is that people shouldn't call him a Gazlan, here, Shimon is not going to call him a Gazlan. He didn't steal anything from him. He just gave him a gift. He's not going to call him a Gazlan. But if the reason is that he should be known as a trustworthy person, to give a gift and people find out that it was stolen, that's not trustworthy. And that's what the Gemara says. That he should be established as a trustworthy person. People shouldn't say, I gave a gift and he stole it. They shouldn't be called a thief. Shimon can't really call him a thief. He gave him a gift. He didn't steal anything from him. What did I steal from you? That you can't call him a thief. So now, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro. Amen. Gedalia, when you come in, bring in some sugar with you.
Some what?
Sugar.
Regular white sugar?
Regular white sugar. He says it like it's something terrible. Now let's go back to Reuven, who sold the field to Shimon, and then afterwards he bought it from Nachman. And the question is, when he bought it from Nachman, did he do that to solidify the sale to Shimon, or he bought it from Nachman not to solidify the sale from Shimon? The sale to Shimon was a sham sale. So Pshita Zovna, it's obvious that before he bought it from Nachman, if Reuven went ahead and sold it to somebody else, he sold it to Berish, or Arsa, or he gave it to one of his children, or V'yov Matana, or he gave it to Berish as a gift, so then it's clear that he didn't buy it, that it should be established by Shimon. Lavlu kmu kamei lakeh kaboy. Nafla Yerusha. If Reuven inherited it, so where Reuven inherited it, obviously he didn't do it not to be called a Goslin or to be trustworthy because it happened by itself. Yerusha Memelehi. Valaviyu Katov Abasra. He didn't try to get it. And therefore, since he didn't try to get it, we don't say that it solidifies the sale to Shimon. Gavo il b'chayvay. If he collects from Nachman this field for his debt, so chazina. If Nachman had other land and he wanted specifically this land, then it's clear he wants it, that he shouldn't be known as a thief, or he should be established trustworthy. But if not, then Zuzehu Debai, and it's clear that he just wanted the money. And therefore that doesn't show that he's doing it to establish in the hands of Shimon. But what if Nachman gave it to Reuven as a gift? So pliba Ravacha v'Ravina. That's a machlokes Ravacha and Ravina. Chadam matana ki Yerusha. That's a gift is like Yerusha. He didn't try to do it. He didn't try to get it. It happened by itself. So that doesn't establish it by Shimon. Thank you. You see, there's a man that when I say sugar, he says, Rabbi Weiss is a sweet guy. My wife would see that, she'd faint.
This is a safe space down here.
Yeah, my wife would see that, she'd faint. My wife does not have a love affair with sugar, except with me, but...
You just tell her women, little girls are made of sugar and spice and everything.
Yeah. Listen, she did my gesund a big benefit, getting me off the amounts of soda that I used to drink. I used to drink amounts of soda. You know, they say 8 cups of water a day. Yeah, I would have 8 cups of soda a day. Yeah, I would.
20 years.
Right, you live a long time. Yeah.
Rabbi, it's amazing Pepsi's still in business without you.
Yes, Irving used to bring me plenty of soda.
You still drinking J&J?
J&J, yes, I do, yes. Yes, but I generally, that's what I drink. I drink enough to make a bar nefashis, about 3 ounces of that, before I leave to shul in the morning. She's talking about the J&J cappuccino.
Oh, you realize that Mizmar Lasoda was only introduced into the balcony because of all the cola you drink, right?
Says the Gemara. I'm sorry I interrupted over here.
Well, where are we at?
Marshall is here. Look at that. I didn't even notice. We're holding on Tes Zayim Amid Aleph, and we're holding about 18 lines from the top. 18 lines from the top of Tes Zayim Amid Aleph. Turn the Gemara around, Marshall. He has it backwards a lot of times. B'matana, in the event that Nachman gave the land to Shmuel b'matana, to Reuven b'matana, the question is, does that show that he wanted Shimon to get it securely? So pliga Ravacha v'Ravina, it's a machlokes Ravacha Ravina. Chad amar matana ki Yerusha, that a gift is like Yerusha. He didn't plan it; it came by itself to Hamamela, and therefore it doesn't solidify the sale to Shimon. V'chad amar no matana kemecha. Matana is like a purchase, because obviously people don't just give someone a gift. If he got the gift, that means he curried favor with Nachman in order to get that gift. The ilav the torach va'artze kamei, if not that he troubled himself and curried favor with Nachman, lo yaviyov le matana. He wouldn't have given him a field as a gift. And the reason why he curried favor is to make good with Shimon. And lachi torach va'artze kamei ke'echid like a mamnusay, that he should be developed as a person of trust or not as a gazel. Va'ad emes nechalei delekim be'amnusay. Until what point do you say that his motivation is that he should be considered a trustworthy person? Until Nachman brings him to court and says, I want my land back. By then already, we don't say he's trying to make himself trustworthy. Until a writ of seizure comes to his hand from the court that wants the land back. Until they, in order to get restoration, the court makes an auction on Ruvain's field to get recompense. Maskva Rami Bar Chama. And now Rami Bar Chama says, I don't understand how the whole mechanics works. You're telling me that when Ruvain sells it to Shimon, after he stole the field from Nachman and then sells it from Shimon, if he buys it from Nachman, then that affirms the sale to Shimon. How could that work? When Ruvain sold it to Shimon, it wasn't his yet. How could you make that shtar have any validity after the fact? Michtei ha'iloy keach. Shimon, what's his claim to own the field from Ruvain? B'hai shtara, the deed of sale that he has when Ruvain sold it to him when it wasn't yet his. You can't write a deed of a sale on a land that's not yours. Hai shtara chas b'almo. That shtar is a mere shard. Shard it's meaningless. Amalei Rava teheba maminai. It's talking about where Shimon trusts him. Shimon says, Ruvain, I know you're a man of your word. If you're selling me this field, that means you're going to make good and you're going to get it. And the acquisition is with the trust that Shimon has in Ruvain. That Shimon doesn't say to him, Midei. He doesn't say to him, what are you selling me a land that's not yours? Because Samachalei, and he relies on him, that Torah Chamaisile, that Ruvain is going to make it good and buy it from Nachman, Gomer Maknale. That pleasure that Ruvain has, that Shimon trusts him, for that he gives him over the right to the field. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. You're not allowed to sell something in the future. Most of Rav Sheish is, if let's say, I say what I inherit from my father, I'm selling to Stephen. What I inherit from my father, I'm selling to Stephen. Or, Mashetala Mitsudasi, or what I'm going to catch in my net, the fish that I'm going to catch in my net, Mochalach, Loyamaklum. So you see, you can't sell ahead. That's what Reuven is doing here. What he's going to buy from Nachman, he's selling. Now, it says, Mashi Irishman Abba Hayoim, what I inherit from my father today, Mochalach, I'm selling to you, or Mashetala Mitsudasi Hayoim Mochalach, or what I get in my trap today, I'm selling you, that works. That kayamim. Now, the Gemara is going to say that this is a special dispensation, that the person is saying what I inherit from my father today because he needs to bury his father, and he doesn't have any money to bury his father. So there they made a special dispensation that it should be done for the cover of burying the father. And the case where he says, what I catch today, I'm selling to you, they made a dispensation because he needs it for his livelihood. He needs it to eat. He doesn't have what to eat. But anyway, Amarami Bechama ha Gavra ha Tiyufta. Says the Gemara, here we have a great man, and here we have a refutation. You see, you can't sell ahead. So how could Ruvain sell something to Shimon that he didn't buy yet from Nachman? Amarava Gavra Kachazina. I see a person, but a Tiyufta like Kachazina. I don't see a refutation. Hacha Samchadate. Here, Shimon is Saimach Das. He knows Ruvain. He knows Ruvain is a man of his word. And if Ruvain says that he's going to buy it from Nachman, he trusts him. But he says, my father dies. He doesn't know if the father is going to die. What I catch in my net. He doesn't know if he's going to catch any big fish in his net. Here, Shimon is Simon Das, the Azul Tarach that Reuven is going to go and buy it from Nachman. He shouldn't be called a thief. Here, he's not Samech Das. He doesn't know if the father's going to die. He doesn't know if he's going to catch a fish. They sent the discussion to Rabbi Abba bar Zavda. Amalahu, he said to them, you don't even need to bring this into the base medrash. It's not a kasha. This needs to be brought even into the big men on campus, all the way lefnei lefnim to the big experts. But the answer is hachasam chadata. Here, Ruvain, when he sells it to Shimon, Shimon is Saimach Das that Ruvain will make it good and buy it from Nachman so that he shouldn't be known as a thief. But hachaloisam chadata. Here he's not Saimach Das because he doesn't know if the father is going to die or if the net is going to catch a fish. Havi uvda b'Pumpadisa. V'oisvei. There was an incident in Pumpadisa. They asked this question. Amalu Rav Yosef zuein tzvich lefnim. This doesn't even need to be brought in the base medrash. Amalu bayit tzvich lefnim. You got to bring it in. But the answer is hachasam chadate. Over here, Shimon is Saimach Das that Reuven will make it good, so he shouldn't be known as a thief. Hachaloisam chadate. So now the Gemara asks, Umayshno Reisha, Umayshno Seifa. What's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? In the Reisha, when I sell to Stephen what I'm going to inherit from my father, it's not a good kinyan. But when I sell what I'm going to inherit today, it is good. And the same thing, what's the difference with the trap? So says the Gemara, I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Seifa, Mashi Irish Ma'aba Yoim. If I say to Stephen, I'm going to sell you what I'm inheriting from my father today, that's Mishum Kvoid Aviv, to have what to bury my father. For the covet of the Tata, they made such a exception. What gets caught in the trap today, and it's amazing that we're already turning the page. Isn't that amazing? We're turning a page on a Matzah Shabbos of difficult Daf Yomi. We're already turning the page on our way to a wonderful accomplishment. It's amazing what a spoonful of sugar could do.
You're waiting for someone to say it makes the medicine go down, right?
It makes the medicine go down. That's Mary Poppins, right? Mary Poppins.
Little bourbon goes a long way too.
You got to get to work, Marshall. Telling you, it's unbelievable how some people.
Not for me, I don't need it right now. I'm cool.
Right. Okay. Who wants to get a case of bourbon by getting us 50 people? Marshall doesn't need it. He just threw away bourbon. Bourbon's not for me.
We'll see how many people show up at my house.
Well, I'm looking.
There's got to be steady people.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. You have to know that I don't enjoy flying at all, and I have a karsa toiv to Mrs. Smilowitz, because Mrs. Smilowitz, who was my wife's single best friend, was involved in our shidduch because I called her up for information about my Rebbetzin, and she said the best thing that a person could have said. She happened to know my first Rebbitzin also. And she said to me, Rabbi Weiss, you would be going from one magnificent to another. Those were her words, which was such a smart thing to say. It was what I needed to hear, So for that alone, I would go to the wedding. But also, I try not to be away from my wife overnight. Since we're married, we weren't away from each other overnight. So I'm going for that reason. And we thank Marshall for getting us a place to stay already. Shelley, Marshall told me that you've stayed in that place already.
Right, Shelley?
Great accommodations and a tzaddik of a host.
Okay, at least that'll offset Marshall.
Thanks a lot.
Can
I get Romanian
over for
first
chili
for
and
dinner?
you're the two.
What's Victoria County, right, Marshall? Victoria County.
Okay, we welcome in Philippe, who's made an appearance. Yeshua Shmuel Eisberg, Shimon Deer, and let's not get sidetracked as we're on the top line of Tez Zayin Amud Beis, top line of Daf Tez Zayin Amud Beis. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Now we're going to talk about the topic of buying something in the future. This is, I say to Marshall, the field that I'm going to buy from Nachman, when I buy it, it should be acquired to you from now. Kana. Says the Gemara, I'm a Rav Mistaver Milsadurab, where I say any field, because any field I could buy. So Marshall is Saimach Das, that I will get a field. Aval B'Sadazu, but if I say, that field on Central Avenue, on the third block in the corner, there maybe it's not a good sale. Because me yemer de mizrun le'nihali. Who says that I'll be able to buy it? Who says they'll sell it to me? And therefore Marshall maybe is not Saimach Das. However, the Gemara says, well, Elokim, by God, Amar Rav afilu b'sadazu. Even if I told Marshall, this field, when I buy it, it should be sold to you from now, it's also good. Why? Because this is going according to the sheet of Rav Meir, then other makna davar shaloi ba'loilon. I could sell you something, I could transmit to you something that didn't come yet into the world. Michtei, Rav Kaman Amar L'Shmaitz. Who's he saying? Like Rav Meir. The Amar other makna davar shaloi ba'loilon. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, ha'ima le'isha, if let's say Chatzkel says to a woman, hiskacheli la'achar she'is gaya, you should be mekudeshes to me after I become a ger. La'achar she'tiskairi, or after you become a ger. Right now we can't be mekadesh, she's a guy. But after you become a ger. Or la'achar she'ishtach, he's an eved. But he says after I'm emancipated. Or la'achar she'tishtachri, she's a shifcha. But he says after you're emancipated. Or she's a married woman. And he says, after your husband dies. Or she's waiting for Yibam or Chalitza in order to be able to marry. And he says, after your brother-in-law gives you Chalitza. Or he's married to his sister. He says, sweet guy, after your sister, my wife, dies, I marry you. Ain't a Mekadesh, not Mekadesh. Rameir, I'm a Mekadesh. Now, in this case, it's not within his control. It's not he says after your husband dies. That's not within his control. It's like a specific field. How do you know that the husband is going to die? How do you know that the sister is going to die? And yet you see, Vama Rameir Mekudeshes. So according to Rameir, and this is Rav's decision, that you could sell something that didn't come into the world yet when it comes into the world. Amar Shmuel. Michal Avram says, I want to get back to Shtaris. I miss Shtaris. I know, I see I see he has shtaris in his eyes, you know? He misses the shtaris. So let's get back to the shtaris. So Amar Shmuel. Actually, this kind of we haven't been going on this kind of pace for days. This is a little bit more of a rapid pace than we're used to. You know what it is? Most of the whole week last week, I had to keep on explaining the cases every line, and going back and explaining the case every line. That takes a lot of time. Gedalia says that even though he's marrying off a daughter, don't expect him to miss any time. He's going to be here as much as possible, right? Good. I understand that the Sheva Brachas that they made for you from us is not going to interfere with the Shir, I think, right? That's amazing. Now, Amar Shmuel. Hamaitzi shtar akna b'shuk. Now remember, a shtar akna was that unusual shtar where Marshall writes that I have a lien on his property. We said that the Rosh says, I don't understand why anybody would do that. But Marshall says, Rabbi Weiss, out of deep hakoras hatoiv to you for treating me so nicely all these years, I'm giving you a lien on all my property. And what happens is that Shelley finds this shtar in the street. So Amar Shmuel, shtar akna b'shuk, yazur l'bayim, he could return it to me. Because what are we worried about? De'imishim dekasav l'lava yisvaloi lava. If he wrote it expecting to take a loan, and he didn't take the loan, but this is not a IOU note. This is a note that they gave me a lien on his property. Hoshib and Navshe. The Imishim Perayin, and if it's because I satisfied him, I said, Marshall, instead of giving me the lien, you know, I'll take from you one of your Corvettes. You know, Marshall has Corvettes. You know, I'll take from you one of your Camaros, okay? I'll take from you one of your Camaros. So the Gemara says, we're not choishish for that. Because if that would have happened, Marshall would have torn up the document. Like chayshin on the piroi. The image said the parei, because if we made it good, mikra v'karlei, we would have torn up the shtar. That is establishing now an opinion that we're not worried that maybe it was paid already and it dropped from Marshall, because if it was paid already, then Marshall would rip it up. Amar Rav Nachman says, Abba means, Amar Rav Nachman, Abba means Safrei Daine de Mar Shmuel Abba. My father was from the court scribes of Mar Shmuel. And I remember at Vavina Kibar Shita Kibar Sheva, I was a little boy of 6 or 7. Udecharna Dahave Makr Seve Imre, he says, I remember that I heard them declaring, Hani Shtore Aknaisa de Mishtake Beshuka, a shtar that gives a lien on a person's property, Nahadrinu Lamarai, you could return it to Rabbi Weiss so that he continues to have a lien on Marshall's property. It seems to be that we learned this idea as well in a Mishnah. Kol Maisei Bezdin, any document issued by a court, you could return it. Now, why don't we worry that maybe an IOU note was issued to me, but Marshall paid it and I returned it to him and he dropped it. So it must be that we say, we're not worried that it was paid, because if it was paid, then Marshall would have ripped it up right away. Amalei Reb Zera, No, it's no raya. That which Rav Nachman heard when he was a 7-year-old, a 6 or 7-year-old, it's remarkable that he registered a halachic teaching at 6 or 7 years old. Amalei Reb Zeira masnisen b'shtori chaltosa v'ad drakta. That's talking about a specific document, a document of foreclosure or seizure. What does that mean? Using here Scrollian words, foreclosure or seizure. What that means is it was a document that the court issued to foreclose on Marshall's property if he didn't pay a loan, or a document of seizure if Marshall stole something, to seize it back. Those are not things that get paid up. Says, well, it's not so simple that doesn't get paid up. The halacha is, if Marshall owes me money and he gives me land, Marshall owes money, I seize the land from him. Up to a year, he could say, Rabbi Weiss, here's money, I want my land back. Says the Gemara, I might have a document to foreclose, but Shuma, that which was assessed and taken away from Marshall, Marshall could get it back if he pays with cash up to a year. Well, the Amemer says, I'm from Nardo, that Marshall could get it back any time that he pays the loan with cash. Because if Marshall would pay back the money, then he should structure that I should write him. The Amar Emre Iuhu da'afsida nafshe. There Marshall heard himself. The pari, that if he gives me back the money and he wants back his land, then he should have right away ripped up the IOU note. He should have right away ripped up the writ of foreclosure. Or he should say, look, Rabbi Weiss, you're giving me back the land, give me a new deed of sale on the land. The Medina really, I don't have to return the land to him. I mean, he owed me money, he didn't pay. I seized it lawfully. To do, Jews do what's right, even though they don't have to do it. They do what's right, even though they don't have to do that. It's a big part of Yiddishkeit. I remember that I was by a car in a supermarket, and I brought the shopping cart with my stuff to my car. So afterwards, you have to return your car. You can't leave it in the parking lot. So a guy was passing me and was heading into the supermarket. So I showed him my cart. You want to take it? And he pointed at me that this cart's in the front and walked right by me. The whole idea that he should take it, that I shouldn't have to walk and bring it back, wasn't even on his radar. It just wasn't on his radar. It struck me. Jews do v'asisa yosher v'atoy b'nei Hashem. It's not on the whole world's radar. So here, when Marshall owed me the money, and as a bum he didn't pay me, so I went to court, I took his land. I don't have to return him the land if he gives me money. But al svasisa yoshev atoiv, I do it. Hudam Rabbanan ta'ader. Rabbanan say that it should be returned. Hilkach Mereshu the Kazavan. So therefore, when he gets it back, he should have written a new deed of sale on it. He didn't. So he's the one that loses out. But over here, where Shelley finds a promissory note, a promissory note is different.
Selfish. I'm watching my Gemara. I'm watching my Gemara here.
A promissory note is different because Shelley wants to know if he could return it to me, or maybe it fell from Marshall. I already, that Marshall already paid, and it fell from him. Or do we say we don't say that because Marshall would have ripped it up immediately? Says the Gemara, no, it's not like a foreclosure document. As the Gemara says, that if it fell from Marshall, he should have ripped it up. He should have torn it up. Not so fast. It could be that Marshall paid me and asked me for the IOU note, and I said, look, I don't have it with me. I have to go through my papers. It could be that Marshall doesn't want to be chutzpahdik because I gave him a loan. So when he pays it up, he's not going to stand on ceremony. I'm not going to pay you unless you give me the IOU note. I push it off and say it's in my safe. I got to get it out. I'll give it to you tomorrow. And then I didn't see him, and therefore maybe that's why he didn't rip it up. I say, I don't have it with me. Or I'm holding the IOU note because I want to get from Marshall the money I paid to the scribe. This is an interesting thing. When Marshall takes a loan for me, an IOU note has to be written by the scribe. Who pays for that? Obviously Marshall. He wants the loan. He has to pay for the IOU. The idea is I wanted to protect myself, so I got the IOU note written, but Marshall never paid for me. I told Marshall, I'm not going to return you the IOU note until you pay me the scribe's thing. That's why Marshall didn't have it to rip it up. And that's the Gemara's other possibility. I was waiting to get reimbursed for the money that I paid for the scribe. Now we're going to see not like Shmuel. If, let's say, Shelley finds a promissory note in the market, even though it has an authorization on it, it's certified by the court. He can't give it back to me to collect for Marshall. There's no question if it doesn't have a certification that he can't give it to me, because maybe Marshall wrote it thinking that he would take the loan and he didn't take the loan. He wrote it to take the loan and never took the loan. Even though it has a certification of the court, so that means the court certified that this loan took place. Handpick means that it's certified. Shelley can't return it to me. Why? Because we're afraid that maybe it was paid already, and I returned the IOU to Marshall, and Marshall dropped it. So we see that Rabbi Avo is of the opinion that we don't say that if it was returned to Marshall, you would rip it up. So Eisvei Rabbi Yemel Rabbi Avo, we learned Kol Maisei Bezdin Harizeh Yachzer, anything issued by the court, you could return. So Amalei Yirmiyah Bri, Yirmiyah my son. It's interesting that the Yatzko brings down from the Nemuke Yosef that Yirmiyah Bri is a term of endearment. I was wondering why the Nemuke Yosef has to say that. You don't have to say it's a term of endearment. It means that Yirmiyah was a Talmud. And all Talmidim are like children. Like it says, V'shinantam levanecha elu ha-Talmidim. This is a point that I made yet when I was in Staten Island. Sometimes they would open up a shiur that would have a 15-minute more convenient time. And people would think about leaving just that they could go to a shir with a little bit more convenient time. And I said, if you believe that a Talmud is a child, then a Rebbe is a father. You don't leave your father for 15 minutes. It's a very heavy statement. Rabbi Yaakov took this very literally. They asked Rabbi Yaakov in old age would travel. Rabbi Yaakov was in Toronto. Rabbi Yaakov was in Muncie. Rabbi Yaakov was in Florida. He would travel for a wedding of a Talmud. So they would say, it's a big thing to travel like that. So he says, well, if a Talmud is a child, who doesn't travel to their child's wedding? So he took the metaphor of a child very, very literally. So we welcome in Sandy Grunfeld and Harrison Kletzel. Says the Gemara, Amalei Yirmiyah Bli, Loikol Maisi Bezdin Shavim. The reason why, if Shelley finds a document of the court, we welcome in Nachum. The reason why, if Shelley finds a document of the court, they could return it to me. It's talking about in a case where Marshall is proven already to be a liar. And therefore, even though he said he paid it, we don't trust him. Says the Gemara, because he was proven a liar one time, Sula Paraklal, does that mean he's never going to pay? Ela Amarava, like we explained earlier, Masnisin B'shtar Chaltosav Adrachta, it's talking about a star of foreclosure or seizure, or that doesn't have piroid. So now the Gemara says, and you know what? For this next, we'll just change the channel. Wait.